guys, Ali here with Run Pure Sports to recap all the big winners from this past week. We'll start off with a guy Hoop who has been on a crazy heater this past year. When he's not giving out home improvement advice on our free weekly shows, he's shipping 6-figure GPP.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports DFS and bet show. Picking winners is what we like to call it here. And we are missing one of our winners. That is Holden Kushner. He is out, not because of health and safety protocols, but I believe he's having a surgery. So Holden, you'll be missed. Hopefully you do listen to the show. If you are listening, Holden, hit the like, hit the subscribe. That helps us out a ton. We appreciate it. And everyone else, we appreciate having you guys here over at Run Pure Sports. It's been a great year. Obviously, the year is winding down, and we got our boy Keg to close this thing out, start up the new year, obviously, with the game starting up on January 3rd. And this is a time of year where things are getting crazy. We got teams that are quitting. We got teams playing for playoff spots, and we have to bring in the best, and that's our boy Keg. How is it going over there, my man?
It's going well, my friend. How was your holiday? Hope all's well.
Holiday is good. I'm in Florida, so that's nice. I got to the warmer weather, so that's a good time. And okay, I got some pizza down here, so it's not New Jersey pizza, right? But there was Portnoy apparently did a review. He was like, this was a good place. I was going to go to it, and then it was closed, so I didn't get to have something that tasted like New Jersey style pizza. But Florida's good. I'll take the sunshine. That's good times. And it looks like it's cold by you because you got the hat on like you're hoop out in Detroit with the cold weather.
I'm a little cold, man. My holiday was basically hit by COVID, like 3 different households in my family. Mm-hmm. There was somebody that got COVID in the house. So like my whole family was basically on quarantine during the holiday, but I got to hang out with my daughter. So that was cool. That's all that matters.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, obviously enjoy that. Did Santa bring tons of gifts for her? Did you win? Did you lose? How'd it work out? I know you talked about it a little bit on the one show. So did you win? How'd it go?
She got iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil for Christmas from Pop. That's what she got.
She snuck that Apple Pencil in.
She did. Yeah, she did. Yeah.
You love to see it. Obviously happy for her. Happy to be here with you guys and break it all down. Before we dive in, we're going to talk bets. We're going to talk some DFS. Obviously, Holding here, it'll be a little different, but we'll still have a good time. We'll still bring you guys the winners. Let's talk about the members here that have done really well over the past couple of days. Some people say the members never win over at Run Pure Sports. That's fake news. We got the members at 1.9 million winning last week. BigT won 150K in NFL, and our boy Dunkel's been dabbling himself in the DFS streets, got 40K over the past week. So congrats to our guy Dunkel, who's over on the bet side, who brings some great plays. He's over at Run Pure Bets on the YouTube channel. You can check out plays that he gives out over there. So go subscribe to that channel as well to get those free plays, and sign up too as well. You can use the code GETBETS. It gets you the bet side for free with the DFS product. So it makes sense to have it all. I mean, Keg, I listen, here's a great way that I use you for DFS that you won't even know. I play MMA sometimes, not as often. It's not like one of my favorite sports. I'm not one to claim I'm profitable at it, but I'll play it here and there. And I pull up Keg stuff to see if he's on any bets or something and see what it crosses with the content. And if Keg's got to stand on like maybe a KO in the first round or something crazy like that, that's someone I got to get in my lineups, right, Keg?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, $1.9 million of winners in the last week for subs is absolutely fantastic. You can't beat that. And yeah, how about Dunkel just quietly crushing the NFL on the bet side? Now he picks up 40K in a week. I mean, God bless him.
Yep. It's good times over there for Dunkel. Quick on the cribs, one of our members, 24K in NFL. This one I struggle with. Twy Rich, 35K in NFL. D-Rock, he used to be a coordinator here. He's, still a member though, and absolutely crushing. 24K in NBA. Big T 100K in NBA. I mean, the heater is on for Big T, so a great time to sign up and tail him. And Joseph Schwartz 215K. Also, if you're listening to this now and you have any questions about the stuff, feel free to DM me on Twitter. I'm happy to answer questions and kind of let you know a little bit about the product. And I have said this before, Keg, and I pretty much always get some kind of message. So it seems like someone's listening and someone actually is interested. So that's obviously always good to hear. And people have signed up and been very pleasantly pleased with the product. So we'll do whatever we can to do that and also make it entertaining as well. But we got to bring those winners for the people, Keg. We got to dive in, and you chose these games, and it's a big slate. It's a 14 gamer for DFS, and betting it's a little different, but when it comes to a 14 game DFS slate, like there's just a lot going on. So there's going to be a lot to talk about. And of course, we're doing this on a Wednesday. Some COVID stuff can hit, but let's kick it off with talking about the Titans and the Dolphins, which this isn't like the most glamorous DFS game, but it's one I don't think we can completely ignore. You can definitely make a case in tournaments for a guy like an AJ Brown. Obviously can do really well in this spot. You can make a case for, the Dolphins stack, it's not super cheap, but you can get away with it. And of course, if Mike Gesicki's not his own, I think at tight end is one spot I like to be different. And Mike Gesicki, if no one's going to play him, it definitely could be an interesting spot. Yes, it's a lower total at 40.5, but it's worth calling out. There's not a lot of high totals on this slate. So that's a quick DFS breakdown. The highest total on this slate will be Chiefs and Bengals. There's not a ton to talk about, but there are guys. But Keg, you probably got some bet winners here. So let's talk about the bet side and what you're doing here with the Titans and the Dolphins.
Yeah, I tried to pick 6 games where they were solid games and the lines weren't just insane. We got a lot of double-digit spreads this week. But, yeah, it's hard to fault the Dolphins for their performance against the Saints. They shut down Ian Book, which I assume most teams in the league would have been able to do that night. And the offense met their total expectation, at least. They hit 20. They didn't go over it, though. And the Saints were really never in the game. Waddle played insane. But in saying that, the Fish only averaged like 4.4 yards per play, which really isn't great. But you could give them a pass because the Saints do have a strong defense. So, maybe they struggled against a solid D. But at the end of the day, man, this team's won 8 in a row. And I could just never back them in this spot going for 9 straight wins on the road against a solid team in Tennessee. So the Fish are out for me. Now the Titans, they're just a gritty team, man. They're winning games that they shouldn't be winning, it seems like, every week. They had every reason to quit in that 49ers game. They were down 10 midway through the third quarter. Should have really been down 17-0. But by early in the fourth quarter, they scored 17 unanswered, and they went on to win the game. And I've said it for a month. I think they can make noise if they get Henry back. They finally have Brown back, like you just mentioned, which will help Tannehill. And right now, I only have the Titans 1 point better than Miami on a neutral field without Derrick Henry. So that would make this line 3 in Tennessee. That's basically exactly where it's at right now. But I still have to lean towards the Titans because I just can't back Dolphins going for 9 straight wins. And as far as the total, it feels a little low to me. I think that these teams are capable of getting over that number of 41. 41's pretty low. So I think they can get up and over. But, yeah, lean Titans, lean the over. That's all I've got.
Yeah, 41 is low, but it is worth mentioning. You called it out. You picked some games that are like closer, and like when it's a 3.5 spread, you could see the game maybe interact more. And let's say COVID hits where there are some situations where some defensive guys are out and it causes more holes, then maybe you see the game get a little better. Obviously, pricing matters in DFS. And one of the issues is some of these Dolphins have gone up a little bit in pricing, but it's definitely a game I don't think we should completely ignore. It's a 14-game slate, though. Not the most glamorous game on the slate. So I think we can move on from that. I don't want to talk too much more about it, but the next one we could talk a little bit about. It's the Rams and the Ravens. And man, so the Rams, they are a team. And do we have the side on that one, Keg? What is the side on it? Do we know it yet because of some of the COVID stuff? They might not be out with that. What do you got?
Oh, yeah. Well, they have hung a line all week. Right now, it's currently the Rams minus 3.5. Is the line right now. Now, the look-ahead line a week ago was 2.5. And I would assume we're waiting on confirmation of who's going to start at quarterback. I know that Harbaugh had mentioned that there was a chance he thought all 3 quarterbacks could be available. So, but I'm assuming it will move if Huntley or Lamar play.
Yeah, and I'm seeing 46.5 as like the total, which for good reason, because the Rams, they likely put up points, right? This is a Ravens team that's decimated. I mean, we saw what Joe Burrow did. He just stepped on their throat. He did not like, what the D coordinator was saying about him, which I totally understand. Will Matthew Stafford do it? Will the Rams just get up and run a ton? But it's hard to ignore Cooper Kupp in this matchup. And also another reason it's hard to ignore Cooper Kupp in this matchup DFS wise is when you look at this slate and just most of the slates we've had lately, raw points end up mattering because you have a lot of value on the slate, and he's a good raw points guy to get in there. Now, he's also a guy that's going to be very high owned. And if you do fade him and it works out, you are definitely going to be sitting pretty if you get the right guys also with it, because so many lineups will just be in trouble. Now, Cooper Kupp at 9.5K is a lot. I still think cash games, like you want to get him in there. Tournaments, he's still a good play, but you have to think about your lineup a little bit and what the ownership is on it. I do think you can get away with playing a decent Ram stack, but I don't hate the idea of playing some Ravens, especially if you have Lamar Jackson in. I think he could be a really interesting option if he's low owned, especially at 7K. I mean, we've paid 7-8 for Lamar Jackson sometimes. And if you just tell me the ownership goes down on him, I think he's in play. I mean, I worry about Mark Andrews a little bit because the price tag at 7-4, it is a lot, but you might have enough. People still might be uncomfortable paying that tag, and he's been absolutely smashing. But Marquise Brown at 5.9, it seems kind of sneaky, especially if Lamar Jackson comes back. It feels like people have trouble clicking on that name. So I do think, and I want to see how ownership develops as the week goes on, I do think a Lamar Jackson, Marquise Brown stack with a Cooper Kupp Ram back, and even like a Sony Michel thrown in there, if he's going to get the full workload like he has, I think it's totally in play and a good option. And so is the Stafford stack. I think that's another one that you can go to, but I want to know the weather. This is also, we're in January football. It's in Baltimore, so that's worth mentioning. And that's going to be super important to look at the weather as we kind of develop throughout the week. We do not know what's going to happen with the weather on a Wednesday. So that's something to watch for. Definitely a game that you're not crossing off. It's not a game that when you kind of do your, if you do your MMA, you're not just saying, okay, just X this game completely. Keg, you got something bets wise though, probably in this game for us. So I'm curious to hear where you're at, because this line was a little surprising. I didn't think the Ravens like at 3.5 was like, I don't know if it was correct, but it definitely kind of was like, I was a little shocked by it because of what the Rams are. So what are you doing with this game, Keg? How are you breaking it down?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the Rams. They didn't look good to me last week. We had the Vikings in teasers, and I thought that they had every opportunity to win that game, but they couldn't capitalize on all the interceptions that Stafford threw. And the Rams were lucky to get away with a win against the Vikings, I thought. God knows the offense and Stafford made enough mistakes to give that game away. But, luckily the Rams defense, when you talk about like having timely stops, Minnesota was 2 for 13 on third down. And those timely stops ended up propelling them to get that win. But I don't know. The Rams didn't look, they didn't blow me away last week for sure. Now the Ravens, that secondary, you said this already. That secondary that's been in shambles finally got ran out of an NFL stadium. I mean, Burrow throws for like 500, and it was just a wrap. Offensively, Josh Johnson got the start after Lamar and Huntley couldn't go. But, he played better than I thought most people thought he would. He had 300 yards, pair of touchdowns. But like I said earlier, I was reading the comments, and I think that you can expect either Lamar Jackson or Huntley to go on Sunday. I would think it's going to be Lamar, but I do think one of them will definitely be ready. And I think that this game becomes a tougher game to handicap if Lamar or Huntley can go on Sunday. But one thing that's not going to change much is that Ravens secondary. Last time I checked the injury report, right? So the Rams should have every opportunity, I think, to shred this Baltimore secondary, put up points. And if Johnson goes this week somehow, I would be on the Rams. But I think that people are going to want to wait and see, is it going to be Lamar? Is it going to be Huntley? To be honest, if it is Lamar or Huntley, I'll probably look more towards the Rams team total than I would back in the Rams, because I would expect that line to move, right? Wouldn't you? If Lamar goes, wouldn't you expect that line to move?
You would think. I mean, it definitely could move, but at the same time, like, I don't know, maybe it just gets past the key number, right? Like, that's it. And but not that I think it's like hedged, right? I think it is hedged a little bit where it's like, okay, they're leaning Lamar is in, and then it might get past the key number if that's the case, which, man, it's definitely to be interesting, because I expected the line to be like a little further, but there's also the uncertainty. So I'm sure they're hedging it a bit. Does that make a lot of sense, Kick? I think that's
yeah, for sure. Yep.
All right. You got anything else to add with this game? Any props? Any other things to add? Or
I would probably be targeting their team total over. I think if Lamar goes, as far as the total, I think the same could be said. I would lean under 46.5 here if I knew Josh Johnson was going. But
were there any live betting opportunities? Like, I feel like some of these games where like there's uncertainty, instead of just jumping on it, maybe obviously if you can get in on the bet and you have a lean, once you get the news, you jump on it. But I do think sometimes there's merit to just waiting and then live betting. I mean, you do a live betting show, you're great at it. So sometimes I see spots where I'm like, this is a good live betting spot. I'd rather wait than make the bet now. Do you feel similar here as well?
Well, I mean, you're talking to somebody that like 90% of their betting period is live. So yeah, I agree with you. I always want as much information as I can have. Like in a perfect world, wouldn't you love to see each offense go out in the field once before you put your money down on them? I mean, and that's what I try to do. Now, the problem is you can get screwed. Correct. Where, which happened to me. I wanted to back the Dolphins against the Saints, but I didn't want to lay 170 on the money line. I didn't get the chance to get on them because it was a pick to the house right from the door, and they were off to the races, and I never had a chance to get back. That is the risk that you take. But I would rather take that risk to get a better number and have more info 9 times out of 10.
Well, it's good. It's good to understand that risk. And one thing, like I do this in DFS a lot, like I will be like, okay, I'll look at a play maybe in the first game and be like, I think he has a good play. I can't be mad if he goes off and I didn't play him, but I'm not playing him to gain information. And I think a play later might be perfectly fine instead. And you can't be mad if like it doesn't go your way. You have to think, right, okay, it's not the end of the world. And you also have to understand too, the books are adjusting for the information they're getting too. So it's just about beating them and how much you value that based on your own handicap and what you're thinking. So that's obviously definitely worth calling out, because sometimes people just think, oh, what? Like one thing I just don't totally believe in is some people are just like, oh, I got the Clippers at +5.5. I'll just wait till I can get them at 10. Right. And like, right. You may never get that, for one. And two, like, it's not that simple too. It's just like guys could get injured too. Also, it could save you from maybe making a bet, but it's not perfectly simple like that. But sometimes it can work out for you. Sometimes it can't. But it's definitely, sometimes I think there's better spots to just wait and evaluate it, especially with the way COVID's going right now, where unknowns can come in. And yes, those unknowns can help you out, but those unknowns can also hurt you the other way. Let's say Stafford entered protocol. Well, I mean, you don't feel great about having the Rams if that's the side that you were on. So, I think that was a good back and forth though there about that, because I think that is valuable. And also, I mean, you crush it on the live show stuff. So I definitely wanted to call that out and talk about that.
You also bring up a good point, man. Sometimes it saves you too. You know what I mean? 4 out of 10 times it might save you. So.
Yep, for sure. And the more you do it, the better you get at it as well. So let's move on. Let's talk about the Chiefs and Bengals, which, okay, I mean, I could talk a lot of DFS about this one. Obviously, people are going to look at the Bengals and be like, well, the Bengals were the stack of the week last week. They absolutely crushed. And this Chiefs defense, I think I still heard people say, and I'm curious what you think, Keg. This is actually good before we get into the DFS talk. Do you believe in what this Chiefs defense has done? Here is their schedule. I think since we maybe not since we talked about it, but since they're kind of surge, right? They lost to the Titans and they beat the Giants. They played the Packers, Rams, Cowboys, Denver, Rams, Chargers, and then Steelers. Are you impressed with what the defense has done? And what's your thoughts on that? Because I think you definitely talked about that a lot earlier in the year. So I'm curious to hear where you're at with the
I'm definitely impressed with what I've seen since that Titans game. Now, the thing is, and I think that you and JJ bring this up a lot of the time, oftentimes a team is nowhere near as bad as they look at a point in the season, and they're nowhere near as good as they look at a point in the season. And I think that's the case. I think that Chiefs defense, I mean, last year we thought the Chiefs defense was average. It didn't kill that team, right? So like when they got out of the gate the way that they looked early on in the year, you're like, they don't look bad. They look historically bad. Now, in retrospect, that's an overreaction. The last 7 weeks, they played really, really, really good. Now, are they that good? Probably not. They're just playing some good ball right now, but they're also not as bad as we thought they were in the beginning of the year. So
Yeah.
I think that they're pretty similar to the defense that they were last year. Somewhere around 18th, 19th best defense in football. Not going to kill a team. Not going to stop them from going all the way. You know what I mean?
I agree. I actually think the biggest thing that I have noticed with the defense, and I think has been really big, is there were a lot of fluky turnovers where guys are dropping balls. And what happens is when you turn the ball over, your defense has to go back on the field and you get more tired and you're just exhausted. And then when the team is up and they're pounding it down your throat, instead of having to pass and play catch up, and if they make errors, then your defense gets to go off the field and rest. And I think that rest matters a ton. And sometimes we don't value that. And my best example to give you this, Keg, is, do you remember the Cowboys with DeMarco Murray when everyone was like, that defense is going to be absolutely terrible? And that defense wasn't as bad because they just pounded the rock and controlled every game. And the defense had more time to be able to rest out there. They were also not as bad as everyone thought, but they weren't also this amazing defense. And I think that is really key as well. That has played a little bit of factor. And they did make an addition to get one guy that rushes the passer. And I'm not saying that's changing everything, but applying a little bit more pressure and helping out in that department, I think it can help. And like I said, the Bucs last year, they looked horrible early on. They looked horrible even in November, and then they ended up winning the Super Bowl. So teams can easily change in 2 months. Teams can change in the snap of a finger. You lose an offensive lineman like the Packers last year. They lost Bakhtiari. You lose too many guys at some point, just everything breaks. And that's the worry with the Bucs, obviously, with losing Godwin, Evans, and Fournette. So I think that was a good conversation, though, just about football, not going into the bets and DFS too much. But go to the bets on this one. What are you doing here with this spot? Because, I mean, again, we're going to love this in DFS. I'll talk a lot about it. But break down some of the bets for me with the Bengals and the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think this Chiefs, excuse me, this Chiefs team appears to be back in a big way. I mean, they're the favorite in the AFC right now, as far as I'm concerned. I think they look better than everybody in the AFC. And everyone has been talking about how bad the Chiefs' offense has looked lately. But, I mean, let's be real. If you look at the numbers they put up, 41, 19, 34, 48, 22, 36 last 7 weeks. I mean, they're putting up some really big numbers. The offense has been getting the job done, and the defense has been playing out of their mind the last 5 or 6 weeks. So it's hard for me to bet a team, again, going for their 9th straight win. But if I was going to back one of them this week, it would be this team just based on their merit. But I actually lean slightly the other way. I'm already coming from a place, though, where I'm off the Chiefs regardless. So the Bengals also looked very good last week against the Ravens. I mean, they needed that game in a really, really big way to grab a nice lead in that division. And I thought that they played pretty well. I think this is a very tough game to cap because the Bengals are one of those up-and-coming teams in the AFC that's going to be good for the next few years. And they've played some good ball this year already, but there's no doubt in my mind, I think the Chiefs are the better team and they're playing better than the Bengals right now. Now, the line is saying that the Chiefs would be a 9.5-point favorite if this game was in Kansas City. And that seems a little strong to me. Like, that doesn't entirely add up to me. I would have the line 7.5 in Kansas City. So them laying 5 on the road, it seems like a little bit of an overreaction to me. So while I do think that the Chiefs are the better team, 5 seems expensive. I'm going to lean to the Bengals. As far as the total, 50 seems right to me, but I'll still lean over because this game has the potential to shoot out for sure and just fly over that number. So, yeah, I'm going to lean with the Bengals because I think the number's a little inflated. I'm going to lean with the over. That's all I got.
Okay. I mean, betting against the Chiefs has been a profitable thing all year long. So you can definitely make arguments like, yeah, I mean, sure, going on the Bengals side is not a bad idea. My issue here DFS wise, and this is my issue with the Chiefs all year long. I do think you've seen a lot of these other players step up. I think you've seen teams change the way they play against the Chiefs a little bit. Also, I mean, Keg, I think this happens a lot. And we're all, big football fans, obviously, if you're watching this show. And you evolve, you get better. And man, I just see Travis Kelce and I'm worried he's just getting a little older and getting a little more banged up. And I don't want to see him change, but out of nowhere, he might just be not the same. And that's my one fear with him, which is getting banged up all year. On top of that, Tyreek Hill, again, I think he's a great player, but the problem I have is at that price tag and the way that they're just scheming against him, it's tougher to roster him. And at the price tags, when you add up Mahomes, you add up Tyreek Hill, you add up Travis Kelce, just put those three guys on your team and maybe even just put one of them and then put the run back in, right? Maybe put in the run back of a T Higgins, a Jamar Chase, whatever you think is best. My issue I run into here with this team playing the Chiefs stack is it just feels like it's too much money to pay off what you need, especially on a 14-game slate. If it was a 4 or 5 game slate, 6-game slate, it would make a little bit more sense. And yes, you can make the arguments, oh, well, I might have all the value in the world to make it happen, but I just don't know if it's the correct route to stack these Chiefs up. That's how I felt a lot this year. I haven't really ran them a lot of Chiefs stacks. Earlier in the year, I kind of did, but I've gotten off of them and it's worked out. So I think I'm going to stay off of them stack wise. I understand if you can make it work. If you're telling me Pat Mahomes is going to be like 2%, Tyreek's going to be 3%. Okay. Then we can have more of a conversation, and not that exact number, but in that kind of category being really low owned. I have trouble going back to the Bengals stack because I do think it could be over owned based on just the recency bias of what happened on the slate. Is a 14-game slate, though. If you tell me people aren't going to play him, I could consider it. But the other fear I have with the way Kansas City plays is when they get up, they just kind of run the ball a lot because the way the defense plays now against them. They try to take away that deep threat and just give you a lot of the underneath stuff. And what you want in DFS is you want your games to interact. You want your games to be back and forth. And that's what's great about the Bucs, because the Bucs, they pass a lot. So there's incomplete passes. You don't just sit there, Keg, and I don't know if you noticed this, but watching the Red Zone channel, if you're playing DFS and your team's not on the Red Zone channel during the witching hour, Keg, that's not good. If your stack is not on the witching hour, you're not watching it, you're dead. It's just not, you're not going to win. It's just very difficult. So I want my team there, and I worry you're not going to get that. I mean, maybe you will, because it could be a competitive game, but I think you could see Kansas City running the ball a bit more, and it definitely could be a concern. And I just don't love the price tag. I just think there's so many things that are going in that way, and I assume that everyone's going to see the 50 total. People are just going to gravitate towards it. And on a 14-game slate, I just think I'm going to find a way to get off the board and mix in a lot of the other really good values, because if this game becomes the chalk, or whatever game becomes the chalk, my only problem is I think that the game stack chalk will not be as good as the chalk that you will see based on all these guys sitting from COVID, because you get these random running backs there that are just absolute smashes. And yes, you can make an argument for other pivots, but I think that those other plays are better. Would you rather, okay, if I told you, and you don't play DFS, but if I told you, let's say the Chiefs and Bengals was the game, the stack of the week, would you rather fade that, or would you rather fade Cooper Kupp? Cooper Kupp just feels like an absolute beast every week, and you just don't want to get off of him. And if you play Cooper Kupp, you're not really getting Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce in your lineups. It's just very difficult.
Right. Sure. Yeah. I mean, what he's doing every week is just bonkers crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely nuts. So, and I do like to ride those guys out. I think you get to one point in the year, and Keg, correct me if I'm wrong, because again, you're not a DFS guy, you're a bets guy, but you definitely can probably tell from watching so much football. You kind of get to these known commodities by late November and December, and they just don't stop, right? They just keep doing everything. They scheme it open for them. It's just they are just the guy to ride out. And that's just my thoughts on this game. I don't think it's the best game, but if you tell me it's lower owned, I'll be in. I really need to know what the ownership is on it. And of course, there could be tons of news that changes stuff. And there could be just infinite value where then maybe you do have some lower owned value plays that you can mix in with it. But I'm definitely very price sensitive on this Chiefs side. And I'm very sensitive to the idea of, well, the Bengals just absolutely crushed them. People saw it, and I don't know. I think it just could be overowned in that aspect. But I don't got too much else to say here, Keg, on this game. Any final thoughts, bets-wise, that you want to talk about?
No, not really. I think I'm just going to lean with Cincinnati and lean over. You would agree this has a way better chance to shoot over, right? Even despite how good Kansas City's defense has been playing, and they have been playing crazy good, I think this game has a much higher potential of shooting out than not, right?
The only fear I have with it, and you might see the Bengals just absolutely just step on the gas because they understand who they're playing against, Pat Mahomes. You might see them though, when they get up, they do like to run the ball. They do like the ball control a bit. I do think last week was a bit of an anomaly where I was shaking my head. I was like, why is Joe Burrow in with a minute 10 left, just stepping on their throat with Joe Mixon? Well, the reason why is the quote and the narrative. you could see, and I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you could see them just want to try and milk that clock off and keep Pat Mahomes off the field a little bit more. And that's just one of the issues I have. And that's one of the issues I've had with Chargers games a ton is like Chargers games have been tougher because teams just like run the ball on them and they just bleed clock. It's kind of like what the Falcons do when the Falcons get up. It's hard to play the run back against the Falcons the past couple of years because what do the Falcons do when they have the lead? They just try and bleed that clock out and run, even though they suck at it. Like they're just not good at running the ball. They're absolutely terrible. So yeah, I think that's something I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about these two teams. But yeah, the game could easily interact and go absolutely over and be an absolute bonkers game. It just could go nuts. So
that's all.
Yeah, let's talk about the Eagles and Red or Washington football team. I almost went there with that one, but the Washington football team. I think this is a game that's interesting. It's not a game that I'm looking to load up on for certain, but it is a 46 total, which is nice. It's got a running quarterback, which I like. That still feels too cheap with Jalen Hurts at 6.6K. I think there are options like people might be worried to go back to Dallas Goedert. He really disappointed, and if you tell me he's low owned, I like that. I think Devonta Smith, we know how bad this Washington football team's defense is, and we know that they're better against the run. And because they're better against the run, maybe you do see the Eagles air it out a bit more. I think it's something that could obviously be valuable. You got Boston Scott, who could become very chalky depending on Jordan Howard's status. And if they do have Boston Scott only back there with mixing in Kenneth Gainwell, well, if you do mix in Kenneth Gainwell, maybe you actually do more designed passes that turn into runs, and that could be really good for the stack. So I do think this Eagle stack, it could be a little bit sneaky on this slate. I think it could be a good one, and I don't mind playing some football team ran back, and the reason why is Terry McLaurin, if you look at his price tag, 6.2K, that's cheap for Terry McLaurin. Of course, this game is in Washington, so I want to know some weather on it. That could matter. Antonio Gibson at 5'9" certainly could be a good play. And you can always argue Taylor Heineke, yes, he can have miserable games, but Taylor Heineke, he will not be out there just throwing checkdowns. That man is out there trying to win the game. He is going to actually throw the ball a little bit deep and take some shots. And opportunity is key in DFS, and there is a chance for some opportunity for this. So I think if this game doesn't, if people aren't gravitating towards this game, Keg, I think it's a really good game to game stack DFS wise because of all the options you have. And you also have a cheap tight end option in a John Bates, if Ricky Seals-Jones plays, you have him. And I like correlating the tight ends in my stacks. And that's what makes Dallas Goedert a great correlation play as well. So I think this could be a really good DFS game. What are you doing betting wise? Because again, this is an interesting one because it's like one of those division rival games late in the year. So I'm curious to see what side you're on here and what total.
Yeah, I think the Eagles got the job done last week. They exceeded the marketplace expectation by over 2 touchdowns. That's a good week in terms of how you did compared to the betting line. And for the last few weeks, they've been taking care of business in the NFC East. They beat Washington a couple weeks back. Then they took care of the Giants last week. Now they're playing Washington again. And, you know, in the first meeting a couple weeks ago, the Eagles probably had their best offensive performance of the year. They had like 520 total yards of offense. They averaged 7.5 yards per play. They had Washington's number drive after drive. And to be fair, the Eagles were -2 in turnover differential in that game and still won by double digits. So, but you know, it's worth noting that in that game, Garrett Gilbert was the quarterback, and this week that won't be the case. But you know, it's still worth being said. As far as Washington, they haven't looked good for almost a month now. Now, granted, it's hard to win in this league with quarterbacks like Garrett Gilbert and Heineke. I understand that, but this is the position that they find themselves in. I went back and looked at the look-ahead line the first time they played in Week 15, and it was the Eagles -2.5 at home. The look-ahead line this week was the Eagles -2.5 on the road. So that's a 5-point move in 2 weeks. And the question you have to answer is that 5-point move too big of a move based on what you've seen the last 2 weeks?
I think it's kind of a bit
what do you think? What do you think?
This is my issue with it. And let's just like Hoop loves doing this. Let's pull up the schedule. Well, no kidding. The football team struggled a bit. They played the Rams. They played Dallas twice, and they played the Eagles. That's who Gilbert had to get. And like those just are not the easiest matchups. Like Keg, if I told you, hey, the Rams and the Cowboys both were in the Super Bowl, would you be shocked at all? The Eagles, I think you'd be shocked. You wouldn't be like, okay, it's not like crazy, but you would be shocked, especially to get through that. But would you be shocked about the Rams and the Cowboys? I think your answer is
No,
no, right?
100% no. Yeah.
Exactly. I think these have been some really hard games for them. And we've seen them on national TV as well. And I think that's one reason people won't go back to this team. And you know what? This team can beat up some teams. And of course, yes, the Eagles, they're not that bad. They're not a bad football team, but are they a team that Washington can't take care of? I agree with you. I think you're onto something here. So I'm kind of in agreement with you.
Yeah. So then you agree that that line shouldn't have moved 5 points and look ahead in 14 days. That seems excessive.
Probably not, especially at home, right? And you're getting it at the 3.5 with the hook as well, which is kind of nice. That's always good to be on that side of it. So I
agree. I'm right on the same page with you. I lean towards Washington here. As far as the total, I think 46.5 feels right to me. I even looked into the team totals for the game to try to see if I could find an angle. Nothing really stood out to me. I think I expect a similarly scored game as the one that they had a couple weeks back, 27-20, 27-17, 27-14. So, I mean, I don't know. The total feels about right. If anything, I think I would slightly lean under. What do you think about the total?
I'm definitely not as great with the totals. I will say the reason I might lean more over, Keg, is I do think, what do you think of this football team? What do you think of their run D versus having a Boston Scott, a Jordan Howard, like a Gainwell running back there? Like, I do think you could see like the Eagles maybe embrace throwing a little bit more here. I just don't think that would completely shock me. And also I could see the football team maybe putting a little bit more pressure on that as well. The one thing that the football team does a little decent though is when they are kind of humming as an offense, they're definitely willing to like kind of bleed the clock out. So that is something that would play into your favor as well. But that's kind of like my just thoughts. I don't know. What do you think about some of the stuff I said there?
Well, I wanted to see where Washington was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're 8th right now against the rush in terms of defense in 2021. So, I mean, that's not bad. Do I think that they'll be able to somewhat control this Eagles defense? The problem is, you know what the problem is? The Eagles had like 240 yards of rushing 2 weeks ago against this team. So I think it's hard to have confidence in Washington to stop them. Don't you think?
Yeah. Was there anyone missing? That's always something like with this time. I don't know. Do you know of anyone big that was missing like on defensive?
I'm not sure. I would have to go back to week 15 injury reports.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to consider and look at, especially with the way COVID is right now. I mean, it's hard to keep up. I can barely keep up with the NBA injury report. There's a guy named Xavier Moon that played the other name that I know nothing about. You know, I mean, like guys I don't even know. We got guys that have never played in the NFL having to cover Aaron Rodgers on the Ravens side. So it definitely can be tough. That's something I think that there's a big edge to looking back at doing betting stuff. And you're on DFS in Sundays, right? Like when there are guys that roll out big like offensive linemen that could be very valuable. So those are things to look at, but you're bringing up great points for sure that they could easily just pound it down their throat. And you could see the ball control happening. You could also see Heineke throw some really bad picks that lead to some shorter yardage situations for the Eagles that maybe inflate that total side. But again, you're the expert in this. Totals are not really my expertise. So I try to stay in my lane. So, you can keep providing more info on that if you'd like. I'm just trying to give you some pushback of what I'm thinking is really what
why do you think that NFL totals are down so many points this season? I think the average total right now is like 44.5, somewhere around there, which I think it's down 3 or 4 points from a year ago. Why do you think that is?
Is it fans in the stands? Does that play into it? Does it also, I think the bigger thing that might play into it is not as much practice throughout the year, right? With all the COVID stuff and like the preseason where there can cause small confusion and stuff. We're just not as in sync. Of course, by now some guys are, but also with a lot of guys swapping in and out of the lineup, like you just can't get in a rhythm and groove, which I think that could matter a little bit. Do you think that is playing into it or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think people in the stands I probably matters because they weren't in the stands last year, right? They played in like 10% filled stadiums last year, something like that.
Yeah, and of course, like it helps the offense so they can hear stuff and just it
Right.
definitely helped their side. I mean, you saw it with Rodgers. Of course, he's an elite a guy, so I'm not trying to use the anomaly player, but I definitely think it did
I
help.
think noise is probably your biggest factor. The fact that offenses can hear on the road and they could like get through progressions without just devastating crowd noise where people are confused. So yeah, I think that matters a ton. Defenses are playing better because they could hear on the road what the hell is going on. So yeah, I definitely think that that's huge.
Yep, agree on that. Any final thoughts on this game? Anything on the side, or do you want to move on and talk about the
Yeah,
maybe talk?
I lean Washington for sure here, because I think that move seems slightly. I don't know. I can't wrap my head around a 5 point line move in 14 days. That seems aggressive to me. But yeah, I don't know. It could be because on that week 15 look ahead line, they thought that Garrett Gilbert was going to play. I guess that's possible.
Yeah, that could have played a factor. That's definitely something you can probably go back and look at. I am very interested to talk about this game because I think you picked a good one here. We got them Cowboys, which obviously they kind of had a nice bounce back spot there against the football team. This game is in a dome, DFS wise. This time of year, we like domes. That's very valuable. And I feel like the Cardinals, yes, I kind of agree. They might be a bit more overrated, I think, than their record was. But you can make an argument. I don't think the Cardinals are as bad as maybe some people are making them out to be. They're also maybe not as good as people are making them out to be. They're more in the middle. It's more gray. And on top of that, this offense needs to get moving. At some point, they got to just kind of figure it out. Now, of course, that Dallas defense has looked incredible. Maybe this is not the spot where it happens, and maybe it just never happens. Maybe Kyler Murray, it comes out, he's just not healthy because I don't understand why he's not running the ball as much. It doesn't make much sense to me. It's very confusing. And sometimes I feel like in the past, I've been a victim of just being like, yeah, the Cardinals, they'll be fine. They'll figure it out, right? Kyler Murray will eventually run, but it's like at this point in the year, it's January, Keg. He's not running. I just can't assume he's going to and just play him like he's going to. He's more of a pocket quarterback at this time. So I'm kind of scared about the Cardinals, but also Dallas. They've kind of clinched. Maybe they ease off some guys a little bit. I'm not sure. What's your kind of takeaway on this game from a betting perspective?
Yeah, this Cardinals team has just been in disarray for almost a month now. But they dropped 3 in a row, right? And while they haven't looked good in weeks, they did play against a couple tough teams in the Rams and the Colts. But the head scratching loss in that stretch that's really hard to explain is losing to Detroit after coming off a loss. And I said this earlier in the week last week, and I believe it. The Cardinals looked to me like they were the beneficiary of an easier schedule the first half of the year. And when they started playing better competition, they started looking more human. Don't you think?
Let's call this out. I agree with you 100%. The other problem I have is the way they lost to the Lions, right? If they lost to the Lions and like they showed some fight and they were able to get like kind of off where they were at, because they were like brutal, I'd have a little more confidence, but that is a big fear of mine. And like, I don't know what the reason is. I don't think it's the loss of JJ Watt. I don't know if that's like a leadership thing or something stupid like that.
I don't think it can't be that.
I agree. I'm just trying to grab something. Right. I don't got anything. It's like it's confusing. I know. I honestly think it's Kyler. I think Kyler's hurt. Like, I think he's got to be. He must not be able to run as much or something. Because why is he not running? And like, it doesn't make sense. If that is your biggest weapon, like Keg, if I said to you, like your biggest weapon is your live bets. I said, Keg, you're not live betting anymore. Like you can't do it. You're not going to make a profit then as much. Well, I'm not going to say you won't make a profit. Your profit will go down. And listen, Kyler Murray's production, it's going to go down. If you told me you're going to lose this DFS sport, let's say like NBA, I think NBA I'm pretty good at. Well, I don't know. I think my ROI will go down naturally because I think I'm pretty good at NBA. So I just think that is something that I don't understand what's going on with that situation. And I think I'm just going to take the wait and see approach. You can make an argument. Yes, the Cardinals could be a really good DFS stack. They could be great to go to. But my problem with the Cardinals is I have to play the guessing game. Is it AJ Green, Zach Ertz, like Chris Kirk? Yes, there is no DeAndre Hopkins, but I'm just struggling a lot with this team, especially the spot they're in against the Cowboys. And I would lean maybe going more to the Cowboys run D and maybe leaning on more of a Pollard could be an interesting play as a really contrarian option. The only problem is the volume and opportunity is not great, and he needs to be hyper efficient. So that's some of the DFS breakdowns. Cause I think this is a good game for DFS that could shoot out, but trying to play the guessing game could be difficult. And also I don't want to make a mistake being like, yeah, Kyler should turn it on and I start running, because if we haven't seen it by now, Keg, I don't think we're seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really disagree with much of what you said. The only thing that is weird that I will say, and it could be the beneficiary of the easy schedule, is for a large part of the season, you and I were saying on this show that it's surprising how good Arizona is in the trenches on both sides of the football. And over the last month and change, that's just gone away. They don't look anywhere near as good as they looked on the offensive line or the defensive front seven as they did earlier in the year. So it's hard to really know where this Cardinals team is at. And I agree with you. I think that Murray's hurt also. As for the Cowboys, they finally got healthy on offense. Once that started to happen, the team instantly started winning games again. Granted, 3 of the teams that they played on this current win streak are the Washington football team twice and the New York Giants. That's not great. So Dallas, while rolling right now, has had a much easier level of competition the last 4 weeks. Now, looking at this line, the look-ahead line was like 2.5 last week, and then Dallas rolls and the Cards struggle again. Then the line goes up to 5.5. I don't know, man. I'm split. I'm split on this game. My power ratings say that the line should be the Cardinals +5, and right now they're +5.5. So technically, there's a slight bit of value according to my numbers on the Arizona Cardinals here. But after what you've seen the last couple of weeks, how could you ever want to back the Cardinals? That's not really a big enough edge on my power ratings to make a play anyway.
Okay, you have told me some of the best bets are the uncomfortable ones.
I know. Yeah, you're right.
This is the one, but I'm just saying it.
You're right. I have said that, and I believe that. And this would feel uncomfortable. A juggernaut offense in Dallas at home. You got the Cardinals limping in to Jerry World, and you're laying less than 6. I mean, that's scary. It is. But my power ratings say that there's about a 0.5 point of value. As far as the total, I have to lean over, even though this line has moved 2 points, because this game's always going to have opportunities to shoot out. I mean, Dallas is probably going to get theirs. And if Arizona locks in offensively, or if Kyler has been hurt and he's healthy this week, they have the ability to shoot out in this game for sure. Am I going to bet it? Probably not, because you've already lost 2 points of value, but I'm still going to lean over the total.
All right. Well, Keg is leaning over opposed to the total, but let's move on. We'll talk about our last game here. We got the Chargers and the Broncos. And guys, before we do that, hit the like, hit the subscribe on the video. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate it. We got tons of content over here at Run Pure Sports and Run Pure Bets. So be sure to check all that out. Head on over to the YouTube channel. Go subscribe to that Run Pure Bets YouTube channel as well, so you get notified when we go live with tons and tons of content. So be sure to check that thing out. Let's talk about the Chargers. Let's talk about the Broncos, though. And man, this is another one of those games that I like playing the Chargers, but one of my fears sometimes is if they play against a team that wants to play some ground and pound control, they're willing to give up that shorter yardage stuff. And who better than the Broncos, who love to play some ground and pound control, even when they're playing the Chiefs and they're losing, they just say, hey, we're going to keep running the rock and keep Mahomes off the field and pray it somehow works. And I think you could see that here with the Broncos a bit, and it could be concerning, especially with Drew Lock back there. I believe Drew Lock is still there, Keg. It's not Teddy Bridgewater out of nowhere. Am I correct?
I believe so. Last I checked, they thought it was going to be Lock, yeah.
Okay, and obviously Drew Lock is someone, it does feel like he's willing to take the shots downfield, but I do think this team is going to want to make sure they try and run the ball and take that short yardage stuff. I kind of like Noah Fant from a DFS perspective, because the Chargers have struggled against some tight ends, and I think at 4.4K, you can get away with it. And if you want to do a Chargers stack, man, I don't hate the idea of going a Noah Fant in there with like a Justin Herbert, an Eckler, a Josh Palmer, and Allen, a Guyton, like so many guys you can mix in. The other issue with the Chargers is they're not like the Vikings, where it's like, where's the production go? Well, it goes to Dalvin Cook, it goes to Justin Jefferson, and it goes to Thielen. Like, you just know where it's going, which I like targeting those spots. Like, same with the Rams. I know Stafford's going to get it. I know it's going to go to Cooper Kupp. There is part of a guessing who's going to be the guy on the Chargers, which can have me a little concerned. I liked it more last week because I felt like they were thinner. They should be getting some guys back, I believe, with some of the COVID stuff. So I think it's worth looking at. And then, I want to get JSU's take. I'm sure I'll listen to the Print Factory show. I believe that'll be tonight at 10. If not, it'll be tomorrow. It'll be one of these days for sure. Coming up with the holidays, it might be on a different time, but it's a great show here on our YouTube channel. And JSU has been right on Javonte Williams all year long. And I think he's a guy that you can consider in DFS. That could be an interesting play. And hey, you got to love mixing in the Melvin Gordon revenge game because, hey, the Broncos love getting him in there. But I think it's a game DFS wise with a 45 total. It's not a bad one to stack up. It's just hard to figure out which guys it's going to go to. That could be one of the problems with the guessing game on it. Keg, you like this one from a betting perspective. You picked all these games, so you clearly like a side or total here or some kind of lean. So what do you got here on the Chargers and the Broncos?
Yeah, I'll be quick here because this was the easiest handicap to me of the week. The Chargers are absolutely impossible to bet on and feel good about and confident about in your wager. For 2 months, I've been saying that this Chargers team is the most Jekyll and Hyde team in the league. Since October 17th, they have lost 2 in a row, won, lost 1, lost 1, 2, lost 2. So, I gave up weeks ago trying to figure out when to fade or back this team because they're way too inconsistent. The Broncos are not inconsistent. If they are anything, they are one of the more predictable teams in this league. Forget about the Broncos beating the Chargers by a couple scores the first time they played, okay? The play is the under. Every week, Holden and I say we're on the under in the Broncos game, and every week it hits. I think that there have only been 5 Broncos games this season that have gone over. So for me, I'm going to avoid the side like I do every week in a Broncos game, and I'm going to take the under 45, which is one of the higher Broncos totals this year. So I'm going to ride it again. It cashes every week under in the Broncos game, under 45.
I like that, Keg. I think that's a good call on your part. Also, I thought you were going a different way with it. I thought maybe you're going to be on the Chargers or even the Broncos. But here's my question for you before we get on out of here. Obviously, again, guys, check out Run Pure Sports. Check out Run Pure Bets. Got any questions? Feel free to DM me on Twitter. Happy to answer them for you. We got tons of great content over there. Keg puts all this stuff on the sheet. We got the shows. We got tons of content over there. JJ's doing breakdowns on the YouTube channel. Spread's doing NBA ones. I did it with him yesterday. We did a pretty decent job, I thought. So check all of that out. But Keg, I want to get your question on a little Wong teaser action. Sunday Night Football, everyone likes to have their action at different points of the night, right? Like you get one game during the 1 o'clock, one at the 8 o'clock. Packers fit that bill really good. 6.5 favorites at home against this Vikings team. I think that's a good one to throw in the little Wong teasers. Are there any others you could see that we could mix in there? Like, I don't know. Do you think the Broncos, because you like the under, do you think the Broncos teasing them up? I mean, teasing them up to probably like 12 and a half, even 13 and a half is okay, but 12 and a half is not great. But what's one of the games that you think you would tease with that Packers one if you were? Because I think it's not bad. And the last time we talked about this, I'm pretty sure it hit. So you got any games on here that look like good teasers?
I'm looking right now. They don't even. DK isn't even hanging a Packers line right now. That's kind of weird.
That is odd. I don't know why that could be.
Yeah, but I mean, there aren't many Wongable lines that you can see. There's only basically you could, and it's January 9th. It's not even this week.
What about the Bears? The Bears against the Giants, it's -6. They're at home. I mean, it's Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm. I mean, this team, they don't even have one Pro Bowler. I'm not saying Pro Bowlers matter, but man, that team's a disaster. And Nick Foles, you can argue veteran quarterback. That's like, I'm not saying he's a great quarterback, but he's won a Super Bowl. He's like more competent than Mike Glennon, even though it's a Mike Glennon revenge game. Could you tease the Bears with the Packers? Is that a terrible idea?
I mean, I guess you could. You would have to wait for the line to go up slightly, which it probably will. But like, oh God, the Bears suck too, man. They're not good.
But I'll tell you this, it's way better than that terrible offensive line that the Giants have, and Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm. I mean, it's just a mix of both, right? You wouldn't be shocked if during the game they switched the one out for the other. I mean, they did that last game.
Yeah.
And it's not a division rival game too, right? You can kind of make some sense with the Giants staying a little closer, understanding matchups against the Eagles. And then in the second half, the Eagles come in and just overpower them because they're just a better team. So that could be a factor too that plays in, where I just think the better team might just win on it, where it's the Bears. So I don't know. I'm trying to find some teaser spots. It's not great. Obviously, Big T puts those on the sheet, but I figured I'd ask you about it and see if there's anything else you saw. But doesn't seem like you got anything else left.
There really aren't any lines that you could tease this week. It's actually crazy. I just realized that.
Yeah, that could certainly change. So
yeah, definitely.
Be sure to be watching out for that. Keg, before we get on out of here, again, tell the people some of the stuff you're doing this week for the bet side, and then give like your lock, right? Which was your favorite? I believe it was the Chargers one, but if you had to, right, your buddy's going out and he wants to give your boy a lock. Who's Keg's lock if you had to pick it?
Yeah, my favorite play so far on Wednesday is definitely the under in the Denver game at 45. So we'll go with that as the play. You guys can follow us over at Run Pure Bets. That's the Twitter handle. You can follow me at KegRPS. It's $60 a month to sign up for the bet side. You could use promo code GetBets for 25% off the first week or month. And you could add us on to the DFS side for use the promo code GetBets. You'll get 1 free month, and it'll only be an extra $20 after that. So yeah, that's what's going on.
Yeah, and if you sign up too, you're not just getting plays, right? People love getting picks. Of course, if I go out, I'm watching a game, I don't know soccer, but I'm watching a soccer game. I would love someone to give me a bet that I trust. I trust your bets. I trust other people's bets. And on top of that, Keg, you also learn along the way getting in that Discord chat from some of us and from just consuming some of the content. So I think it's one of the best deals you can find with some of the best guys in the industry. And we're very transparent about how we do. You can check out all of our scores and how we've done. What's Keg's units on the year? And then, I'll stop stroking you and then we can get on out of here. What's your units on the year?
Since we started the new year, I'm up like 16, I think. Total.
The new year's August, right? But what do you know? Like,
our new year started in August. Yeah, but total, I'm up like, I don't know, like 90 units since we started.
90 units in a year and a half. And I don't even know if that includes the live bet stuff, I'm sure. So
not all of it. No.
Exactly. So again, I think it's one of the best spots to be. Definitely check all of that out. Check out the DFS side as well. We are going to get on out of here. We will be back next week, hopefully with Holden. I'm sure he'll be here. It'll be me. It'll be Keg. And we'll be breaking it all down for the last week. There's tons of craziness going on. But if you want to stay up to date on everything, go sign up now at Run Pure Sports, Run Pure Bets, and we will do our best to help you guys out with that. But for me, Mangone, Holden in bed, sick, or not sick, getting surgery, and Keg, we'll see you guys later.